Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Aoife. We are very proud of this forum, and we're delighted at the level of interest and participation and the continued growth in the interest and participation that we see in this forum. So welcome to the Think Global Retail and eCommerce Forum here in London. I would especially like to welcome our speakers, Swati Narval from IKEA and Sophie Top from Adidas. Now, this is probably the forum that I am least comfortable at, retail and e-commerce. I am the antithesis of an enthusiastic shopper. I am probably a shopping skeptic, which probably makes me the perfect target audience for a strategy like this. But nonetheless, there are a couple of observations I think that even a skeptical shopper like myself could perhaps make. Four things in particular. The first, this idea of trust and transparency, okay? Everyone out there, all of the companies that are out there, all of us, including ourselves, we are out there actively pursuing digital relationships with our customers. And we want those relationships to be meaningful, impactful, and ultimately profitable. However, we are starting to see that there are wider concerns impacting those relationships, macro concerns, if you like, societal concerns. And in the past, you know, we probably didn't have to pay a huge amount of attention to them. But now we are seeing that a corporation's social values, okay, are actually impacting the buying decisions of their target markets. And not only that, on the other end of the spectrum, your corporate values are influencing who will or won't invest in you. So your trust and transparency has become a really key part of your strategic success. You know, in the past, this concept of, you know, corporate social responsibility usually just went as far as a paragraph in a company's annual report every year, not much further. But now, okay, buyers will not buy from you if they don't trust you, okay? Investors won't invest in you unless they buy into your corporate values. And we are expected to operate ethically. And not only that, we have to advance the causes that our target markets or our consumers place value in. Now, that is a big issue, right? And if you want it really clearly demonstrated, look at the attitudes across the generations, okay? So the younger generations feel much more strongly about this concept of trust and transparency, and that's only going to get bigger, right? And that's something that's really important in terms of, you know, the overarching retail experience. So for me, you know, it comes back to what does your company stand for, okay? And is it something that you can truly stand over and justify to your customer? It's really important, I feel. Okay, the next thing I wanted to kind of touch on was this idea of the customer experience, right? There's probably very little that hasn't been written or said about the customer experience and the customer journey. And it has changed so dramatically. You know, when you think of, you know, a customer experience, particularly a retail one in the past, you know, where you were looking at, you know, really solid, long-established retailers, you know, that had been in the business, you know, for 100+ years, okay? Now the really successful ones are putting up pop-up shops that last for hours. So you've seen a complete and utter change in how the customer experience is delivered to your market. And you have to do that. Because unless your customer experience is unique to the customer, is personalized for the customer, and appeals to them in the context of their own life, the customer will move, literally, and it can happen in a matter of moments. You know, you're surfing, looking for a piece of clothing or whatever it may or may not be. You don't like that customer experience, hop onto another site, gone. You know, it's a very fickle environment. So the importance of the customer experience cannot be overstated. Now, at this stage, it isn't sufficient that you can engage with your customers all the time. You have to be able to engage with them everywhere, right? So it's not just, you know, a single point of contact anymore. It has to be multi-device and multi-channel. For example, you know, customers or consumers, they can start the buying process on one device and finish it on another, okay? We've all seen it on the tube, on the bus, surfing, looking at stuff on your phone. That evening when you're at home, log onto a tablet, if you're an old guy like me, a desktop or whatever, and finish the process. So, you know, your customer engagement strategy has to cover all of the channels, okay? And that's really important. Now, why is the customer experience and the engagement strategy so important? Well, if you can provide an experience, an enhanced experience to your consumer, you can move your product to a different price point, okay? That's absolutely possible. And the really good example of this for me is, and I'm not even quite sure what the correct word is at this stage, is, you know, athletic leisure wear. I believe it's now called athleisure wear. So effectively you had a product that was a functional piece of kit, shall we say, when you were doing sports, right? You went for your run, you went to the gym, whatever, did your workout, took off your sportswear, chucked it in the bag, and that was the end of it, right? Now we have customer engagement strategies from the likes of Nike and Adidas, and in particular Lululemon, I think, who have completely changed a functional product to a product in a completely different context, okay? And people are willing to pay a much higher price for it. They don't necessarily see it as a functional piece of kit, okay? So the engagement strategy has moved the context in which the consumer looks at that product. And by providing that, if you like, more satisfying experience for the customer, they're willing to pay more money, okay? So the customer experience and how you attract, engage, and enhance has a real profit impact, okay? So it is absolutely, absolutely vital. So you must have the strategy to engage and the content to inspire, okay? That's what makes the difference here. Now, when you have that, you come to the likes of us at VistaTech, and what do? We try and make sure that that content and strategy works across all the geos and all the locales. That's what we're really good at. The next point I wanted to talk about was innovation and technology, and in particular, two things that struck me about it. One was around voice, and the other is around artificial intelligence. The voice involvement in the e-commerce and retail market, I think, it has silently crept in to be a huge part of the retail and e-commerce experience. If you look at Amazon's chatbot Alexa, right? What do we do with it? Turn on the lights, Alexa. Add milk to the shopping list. Turn on the television. You know, help the kids with the homework. That chatbot as a piece or a part of a retail experience or an e-commerce experience has become part of our lives very quietly. Like, I'm sure we all have some level of voice activation stuff in our homes, and it's just crept in, and we are all using it, right? And the uptake on it is substantial, and people really like it. And again, the generational difference in attitudes to that is really key for us. Look at Siri. What do we use Siri for? Siri finds the things we want to buy. It'll order them. It'll check if they're in stock, and if we want to go and pick them up, it'll show us how to get there. Again, all voice. So as part of an e-commerce strategy, for me, voice is really, really, really important, and it's only going to get more important. Artificial intelligence was the next one. Now, I think an awful lot more people use or engage or encounter artificial intelligence than they might actually think, be it in terms of your music selection on Spotify or, you know, what you get offered on Amazon. Now, the interesting thing about the artificial intelligence, for me anyway, wasn't necessarily the technology or where it sits in terms of a retail experience. Salesforce.com run a really big survey every year. It's called the Status of the Connected Consumer. And it's a huge survey across a wide variety of industries. I think there's over 8,000 people in the survey. And the interesting thing, or point to come out of that one, was that 52% of the people surveyed felt that where AI or data gathering was being used by companies, they felt it was not being used for their benefit. It was being used by the company for their benefit, not the consumer, which was a really interesting takeaway, I think. So it comes back to this thing of trust, trust and transparency. Now, I don't believe it's going away, but there is work to be done in terms of, I suppose, engaging the customer more transparently around it, but I still feel it's there. The last thing I wanted to mention, and this is one that kind of I particularly like, the concept of direct-to-consumer, okay? If you wanted a classic example of a disruptive technology to an existing established market, you know, the direct-to-consumer one, take the idea of the Dollar Shave Company, right? out of nowhere, right, created a completely new market for itself and a completely new customer experience, and was massively successful and remains so. I think that sometimes when you discuss the direct-to-consumer model with existing businesses, it's seen as somewhat of a threat to their current channel strategy, and I don't really think that that's the case. You know, if you go and you're looking for a particular product and you can't find it through the regular channels, okay, your expectation is that the provider of that product has a solution for you, right? And if they don't, they're not doing their job. So the direct-to-consumer, I think, is going to become an increasingly important part of the channels that people use to connect with their customers. It's, if you like, just another context in which to engage with them. So, in short, okay, how would you summarize this? I think the content is obviously vital. It's got to inspire. But if you don't, if you like, hook or engage the customers first, right, the best content in the world isn't going to get you anywhere. So you've got to have a well thought out, ethical and meaningful engagement and e-commerce strategy that you can really stand over. It's absolutely vital that those core values of your business come through in that strategy. And if that happens, right, you will certainly see the return on your investment, and your customers will engage with you in a meaningful and loyal way, right? And that, I think, is really important in terms of, you know, repeatable and consistent and growing revenues, you know, because the ability and the ease with which consumers can move in the current environment is unparalleled in the past, you know, literally seconds, and you've lost your opportunity. So really, you know, that's all I want to say about e-commerce and retail this afternoon. In terms of what Vistatech can do, we have over 20 years experience in making sure that the content and the engagement strategies that you put out impact and work across all the geos, all the locales, and all the cultures. That is absolutely the backbone of it, and we are ready and willing and able to support you in those endeavours. Thank you very much.